2024 favorite books. Here are 14 of mine. I am still new around here, so I figured why not tell you a little bit about me as a reader through my favorite books of 2024. So let's just jump right in. I've got my trusty list here and I'm just gonna try and remember as much as I can about these books. I didn't even take them off my shelves. I'll put the image of the book up here for you. My shelves are a complete mess. I need another bookcase. I'm gonna open with my very favorite book of 2024, and that is Still Life by Sarah Winman. I'm gonna get emotional just thinking about this book. It is truly one of the most beautiful reading experiences, if not the most beautiful reading experience I've ever had. So this is the story of a young man who comes back from World War II, returns to his local, neighborhood in London and finds that really nothing has changed except for him. And he sets off on a quest to do something different after receiving word that he has inherited a piece of property in Florence. So he and some of his found family take off for Florence and start a new life there. This is a slow, character-driven story about those moments in life that are so pivotal, some of which you realize they're super pivotal and they're, super impactful and they're going to change everything, and other ways and other times that sneak up on you. It is a stunning book that I highly recommend everyone read, especially lovers of literary fiction with like a historical aspect. These characters will never leave me, ever, ever, ever. It is one of the most beautifully prosaic books I've ever read, and I just cannot stop thinking about it, talking about it. I own multiple copies of it now, and will always probably, it's the type of book that if I see it on the shelves in a thrift store, gently loved and used, I'm going to buy an extra copy of it and give it to someone. It's that book. Second favorite, I guess I'm going in order. What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon. Oh my gosh. One of the things you're going to discover about me is I really do appreciate a good historical subplot or a good romance subplot in a historical fiction. And this book has one of the most stunning romances ever. This is a time slip novel. It is all about a woman who falls back in time into her grandfather's story. Or is it her story? Oh my God, it's so good. While in the past, she falls in love. But again, is it really the past? I don't want to give anything away other than to say this book is what time travel books are supposed to be like. In addition, it is this really terrific historical fiction about the Irish Civil War, and it does a great job of portraying not only Irish culture through folklore and fairy tales and all the different elements of time travel and storytelling, but it also does a great job of portraying the impact of Civil War on families and friendships, and it's just really, really, really well written. I sobbed hysterically at the end of this book, and I'm not a big crier in books. Those two, Still Life and What the Wind Knows, I just blubbered like a baby. I'm gonna consult the list. Oh my God. Rules of Civility by Amor Towles. I read A Gentleman in Moscow and was like, yeah, I get it. It's a great book, but it didn't really do it for me. Rules of Civility? Holy moly. If you love The Great Gatsby and you haven't read Rules of Civility, you're missing out, because this is as close as I've ever gotten to The Great Gatsby in terms of that experience. So it's all about a woman who walks into a gallery and sees images of her friend hanging on the wall, a friend that she hasn't thought about in years. She's not even sure, she knows what happened to him, but she's not even sure like how these images came to be on the wall of this gallery. When we meet her, I believe she's in her 60s, and she starts flashing back, and the story starts flashing back to the 1930s when she first encountered this friend. And it's really the story of their Great Depression experience in Manhattan. Though he was affluent and kind of ran in these social circles that were more well-to-do. So it's not really a Great Depression story. It felt more still jazz age to me, and I love that about this book. It really is all about this young woman who is trying to make her way. It's kind of a ships in the night story, a will they, won't they, and it really, I can't find the right words to describe what this book is. It's a coming of age story about this young woman and kind of what she experienced in this friendship that really shaped her into the person that she is. A whole lot happens, not a whole lot happens. It's one of those books that it felt more like a literary fiction than a historical fiction, just because you just kind of live in the moments with these characters as opposed to telling the story of what happened in history. It's a great slice of life novel specific to that time period in that social setting. I loved it. In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. Oh, wow. This is one of 2 LGBTQ World War I stories on this list. And they're both really terrific, but for very different reasons. In Memoriam is the story of 2 school chums who both enlist in the British Army during World War I. One is in love with the other, and it's really kind of all about his pining for his friend and what that experience is like, when they are near each other, when they're separate from each other, in these different scenarios. And it's hard to describe exactly what the plot of this story is, because there really isn't one. The plot is one loves the other, and what's happening to them individually, them as, in their friendship, and to their friends at large. I loved the literary devices that Alice Wynne uses in this book. She uses obituaries or death announcements from the newspaper for their school in between the chapters to really just heighten the experience. So many young men were lost, and that just adds to the tension that you feel in this romance, because essentially that's what this book is. It is a romance. It had that same Etonian voice of an Evelyn Waugh novel, and I love Evelyn Waugh. So I fell in love with the writing of this book, the writing style and the author's voice, as well as these characters. It hit hard. The Sweet Blue Distance by Sarah Donati is the adventure I didn't know I needed in 2024. I did not expect much of this book. I had never read anything by Donati, even though she's a very prolific writer, and I fell in love with this story. This is all about a young nurse midwife who takes a job out in the New Mexican territory, I believe in mid-19th century. So it's all about her travels from her home in New York to New Mexico, what she finds when she gets there. She falls in love along the way. There's lots of territory politics and kind of Wild West stories, and oh my God, it's so good. It's so long, but I didn't even care. It is really, I don't want to call it fun, because it was not fun the same way as this book, which I highly recommend, but it definitely just, I don't know, there's something about these main characters and the setting and the descriptive quality of Donati's writing that just drew me into this story, and I did not care how long it was. I didn't care if there were times that were slow. I didn't care if I didn't know what was going to happen next. I just love this story so, so much. The romance in this book, oh, it's so sweet. I loved it so much. And if you are looking for a Western with a romance subplot, look no further than this beautiful book. It's a great book to read in the summertime. I don't know, it just conjures up that summertime vibe. It's one of those books that I think it's gonna stick with me for a long, long time. The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Catherine Arden. Yet another LGBTQ World War I story. But this one has a dark, really sadistic, almost horror-like storyline. So this book is about a brother and a sister. Brother is away fighting in the war, and sister is desperate to find out what's going on with him. She hasn't heard from him in a while, so she enlists essentially as a nurse, goes to the front lines, is there nursing, and encounters her brother. Well, her brother is not himself. Something has happened to him, and we get flashbacks of, you know, his story and what happened to him at the front lines, and it's really heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. But the crux of the story is this weird, dark character who's essentially like taking their memories and creating this alternative reality or alternate reality with their memories and feelings. So it becomes a story of how does this woman save her brother? And it's a terrific historical fantasy, and I want everyone to read this. I loved it. I think at its heart, this book is all about the evils and trauma of war and the lasting impact of war on humans. Yeah, it's really phenomenal, and I love it. Take My Hand by Dolan Perkins Valdez. If you've been following me for any amount of time, then you know this is my favorite BIPOC authored historical fiction. I love this book. And for anyone who has not read this book, let me tell you, this is the story of a young Black nurse, fresh out of nursing school in the 1970s. She signs up to be a nurse at a local clinic. She gets assigned these two young sisters who live in extreme poverty. So she kind of does what she can to take them under her wing and protect them and guide them. However, she can't protect them from the evils of society. I don't want to give anything away. There is this legal plot or legal storyline in the book that is so good. This is a social justice story. This is all about injustices that were done to these two young women, these two young Black women, and others like them. It is a female reproductive rights story. There are scenes in this book that made the hair on my arms stand up out of just sheer, I can't, they're just not even words to describe this book. If you have not read it, please do. This is a terrific book club book, by the way. Just saying. The Disappearance of Astrid Bricard What can I say? I love uplit historical fiction. This is a great example of uplit. So this is the story of a woman whose mother disappeared when she was very young, just literally fell off the face of the planet at the height of her success and fame as a fashion designer. Well, now years later, her daughter, our main character, is trying to find her way as a newly divorced mom. She's trying to make ends meet, and she's approached with the idea of, why don't we relaunch your mother's line with you at the helm? And she's very intrigued by this idea. But in order to make that decision, she really wants to still understand what happened to her mom. So she starts down this journey of trying to figure out what happened to her mom. And so we have that storyline happening, and then we have flashbacks to mom's story as well as grandmother's story. So it's an intergenerational novel. At its heart, though, it is a novel about women, motherhood, fashion plays a big part in this, and kind of what it means to be feminine. It is a mental health story. It is terrific. If you loved, let me say this, if you love Daisy Jones and the Six and Stevie Nicks and 1970s New York fashion and kind of that New York disco era nightlife, you need to read this book. It's so good. I did not want this one to end. What can I say? I will read anything that Natasha Lester writes. Just saying. The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. I mean, I am a Kate Quinn-aholic, and I love this book. Not surprised by that whatsoever. In fact, I think this is my second favorite Kate Quinn of all time. This is the story of a sentient boarding house and several women who lived at this boarding house in this one period of time in the 50s in DC, and it's just so good. So there are these individual character stories told in these very long chapters that feel almost like short stories. However, they are all intertwined. All of these women are living in this boarding house, and at the center of the story and where we begin is someone has been murdered. We don't know who it is, we don't know who did it. So then we kind of get the backstory of all these women as this mystery unfolds. It is brilliant. It is a feminist story. It is a Cold War story. It is Kate Quinn at her finest. And what I mean by that is she is excellent in her, in terms of her character development. I love her characters so much. They just jump off the page. And this book, it kind of takes characters that or pieces of characters that you know and love from different films or other books. It takes inspiration from those characters and kind of creates this beautiful amalgamation of strong women and also a sentient house. Like, who doesn't love that? It's so good. Last House by Jessica Shattuck. This is for fans of literary fiction with a historical twist, family sagas that are quiet. This book takes place over decades. It is all about one family. The first half of the book is focused on the parents. The second half of the book is focused on the two children. It starts in the 50s, following the parents as the husband is kind of making his way in DC in the upper echelons of politics. He is a lawyer, and he's involved in these international deals and gets involved in dealings in the Middle East during this period of time in the 50s and 60s. As the book progresses into the 1970s, we get to know his children, who have very different opinions on the role of the US in terms of Middle Eastern politics, and just it's highly political, this book. It's really this beautiful story of what life was like for this one family. And it's really hard to explain why I love this book so much, but it was so good. And everyone that I know that has read it has loved it. It's one that really flew under the radar though. And I don't know that a whole lot of people know about it. So definitely check it out. The Trouble with You by Ellen Feldman. Again, this is another one that flew way under the radar. It's literary fiction with a historical twist. It's a Cold War story as well. And it's all about this widow who is making her way in post-World War II Manhattan as a single mom. She takes a job at a local radio station and encounters this man who is starting to make a name for himself, but is also a subversive, meaning he is a communist sympathizer. So she gets caught up in this situation with him. It focuses on their friendship as well as kind of her starting over. So there's this starting over storyline. She is eventually has to choose between two men in two different pathways. So it's also this slice of life novel that gives you that great look into what life was like in the 50s as the Cold War starts to develop. I've used the word quiet to describe this book, and for good reason. It's one of those books that it's not full of big punches. However, it is very emotionally impactful. The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. If you've not read this book, I'm going to need you to go ahead and do that, okay? And I'll give you a tip. I listened to this, and I'm so glad that I did, because I got so much more out of this book hearing all the names and pronunciation and all the, it just added so much more culturally speaking to this book. This is the story of two young friends who over time kind of lose touch. So we get the flashback to how their friendship developed and progressed over time. We hear about when they lost touch and why, and it's highly political. At its heart, it centers around the Iranian Revolution and what happened in Tehran specifically, but as a whole, culturally to Iran. It really is a gorgeous friendship story that I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate. So if you've not read this, please do. It's a great book club book, by the way, because there is a moment in this book where something happens and you as a reader are forced to think about, what would I do, or how would I feel if this happened to me, or if someone did this to me. So it's a great book. It's really wonderful, and it's a beautiful audiobook too, by the way. Diva by Daisy Goodwin. Oh, who knew that I would fall in love with a book about a famous opera singer? I'm not even a huge opera fan. I don't dislike it. I just don't know a whole lot about it. So when I picked up the advanced reader copy of Diva, I was not quite sure what to expect. Maria Callas, didn't know a whole lot about her before reading this book, and you know, I still don't know a whole lot about her history and background, because that's not what this book focuses on. It focuses on her life kind of after stardom, and the things that happened to her in her romantic life, and just the tragedies that befell her. It is so good. It is so, so good. It reads like a fictionalized memoir. All I know is this book is so passionate and raw, and I felt like I got to know this woman and understand her in a way that I don't often feel about characters. So hats off to Goodwin and her character development. It's just that good. It really, really, truly is. The romance between Maria Callas and Aristotle Onassis is, man, oh man. It's really good. So if you want something a little steamy, it's not smutty, but it's definitely steamy, this is one for you. Last but certainly not least is The Fisherman's Gift by Julia R. Kelly. This is a wonderful book about grief and loss. It's the story of a woman who takes in this young boy who washes to shore in this small Scottish fishing village at the turn of the 20th century. We'll come to find out her young son died at sea years before, and this boy who mysteriously washes up onto shore looks just like him. So she takes him in. She's got this heavy heart. He's reminding her, and there's this grief element to her taking him in. She has to open the door to her son's room for the first time in years and touch his clothing and his toys. But yet over time, the story becomes much more hopeful as she starts to think, could this be him who somehow returned by the sea to me? It's also a beautiful village life story. While we're watching her and this young boy in their storyline, we get flashbacks to when she first came to the village and a relationship that she started with one of the men in the village that had a ripple effect on the village itself. So we get all these different villagers' perspectives and stories about the different villagers and kind of how they all intersect in both the past and the present storylines. It's really well done, and I absolutely love this book. It's another one of those slow burns. Not a whole lot happens. There are some kind of flashes of action, but for the most part, this is a really quiet story about grief and loss, and I can't say enough about it. It's really, really beautiful. Those are my favorite books of 2024. I want to hear, do we have any favorites in common? Did any of these surprise you? I know we're still getting to know each other. I want to hear from you. What were some of your favorites in 2024? Let me know in the comments.